Good morning and welcome again to Word of Faith Fellowship, sharing with you what God has done in our lives. And we're so glad that you are listening. This is Mark, and we have enjoyed sharing with you now for going on a year and a half what God has been doing. God has done so much in our lives. We've had many, many people. I think we're now over 190 people sharing with you all the many things God's done. We have a website that has all of the past radio programs on it, and you can see all our prior radio programs. They're videoed, and our website is wordoffaithfellowship.org. We have had testimonies of people from all different backgrounds. We've had people coming out of prison, and people who were facing murder charges, and people who were drug addicts, and people who came just about homeless. And we've had other people whose marriages were falling apart. We had so many testimonies of what God's done in our lives. And so I hope that you would go to our website and listen to all those radio programs. But today I have another powerful testimony. Today I have Logan with us, and Logan is actually in charge of the maintenance at the Word of Faith Fellowship and has been so for many years. He is also a physical education teacher at the Christian school. He has taught my daughter how to get in shape, I guess, a little bit. He stays in good shape, keeping all them in good shape, but he wants to share with you what God's done in his life. God brought him here from Oklahoma many years ago, and God has done a lot in his life, and he has been a major blessing to our church. And everybody knows Logan. Everybody appreciates Logan. He'll do all those things behind the scenes that keeps everything going. And he is a major blessing to our church. So Logan, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mark. I'm happy to be here. Appreciate what you said, but at the same time, it's a blessing to me, just like it would be for anyone, just to be a part of the family of God. And that's really what is important to me, and what has been important to me my entire life. Just God's been so faithful to me, and I just hope that I can express that gratitude today, and that gratefulness for what you and the rest of the family of God at the church has done for me. So, as Mark said, I was born in Oklahoma. Actually, technically, I was born in Fort Smith, Arkansas, okay, which most people wouldn't know that, because my family lived in Oklahoma, close to the state line. So I was born in Fort Smith in the early 80s, to just an average family, mom, dad, have an older sister and an older brother. And at about this time in our family, my parents, they had grown up in church and different things, but like most people or many people, they had strayed away from God, or they had their teenage years and they had done their thing. And so they knew what was right, but they were struggling to do it. But by this point, they were turning their hearts to God again, and they were crying out to God, and really, wanted the will of God in their lives, and were seeking God, which, I think I can attribute what's happened in my life to that. The fact that they were turning their hearts to God, and that brought me into a good place of doing the same thing, seeking God and just wanting what God wanted for me. About that time, the cry my mom always tells me, and my mom has actually been on the radio here, so her testimony should be on the website,
Patty,
like Marcus said.
Very powerful testimony.
Yeah. So, she always tells me that at that time in her life, the cry that God put in her heart was that she wanted me to be raised like Samuel in the house of God. And she really didn't see how that could happen. We lived in a real small area of Oklahoma. Being raised at a church just really wasn't an option. But nonetheless, as I found out in my life, when God says something, his word doesn't return void. And God spoke that to her, and he put it in her heart, and she held on to it. And, God saw that through eventually by bringing us here. So anyway, we moved around a little bit in Oklahoma for a few years in my younger years. Grew up, as I said, fairly normal. Eventually, my Aunt Nancy, who also lived in Oklahoma, my dad's sister, she also was seeking God, and she was, just trying to find God. We would travel to camp meetings, tent meetings in Tulsa. Spent a lot of time as a kid traveling to meetings and seminars and revivals and things of that nature. just trying to find God. And eventually, my Aunt Nancy came into contact with Sam and Jane, who were already here at the time, of course, and had started this church. And my parents came out. They heard about it, and they came out for a youth seminar that was going on here in 1990. They brought my sister and my brother. I was 9, well, I might have been 8 years old about that time, 8 or 9. So I didn't come, obviously not a youth at that point. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, they came here in July of 1990, spent a week at that seminar, and, their lives changed. It's that simple. They knew that what they had been searching for, here it was. And God told them, this is where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to raise your family here, come to this Bible school, be a part of this Christian school. So like I say, that was July of 1990. They came home, put the house on the market, packed our belongings, turned in their notices at work. By August 16th, we were here.
How old were you at that time?
9. I was born in 1981. Right. So, and this was August of 1990. So, At the time, I would have told you I was 9.5. The half was big.
I didn't realize that, but you and I came here the same exact time. Now, I was much older than you. I don't know the math, but so you and I came here, say, August of 1990.
Yeah. So, that's a big turning point in my life. I'd never really been out of Oklahoma. Just one of those things that you'll never forget. It was a big move, a big step. And it was very clear to me that we were coming to find God, to be a part of the move of God, to be a part of the family of God. It was never like, oh, we're going to go live some. No, it was because we wanted God. And that's the reason that we came here. And anyway, as we got here, there was a family in the church. They were like grandparents to me. They both passed away now, Olaf and Sally Carlson. They took us in the first few weeks until we could find a house, an apartment to rent. And I'll be, like I say, they've passed on, but I'll be forever grateful to them for what they did for me. We went to the church pretty early on, just to straighten out school stuff and things like that. When I walked in, one of the first people I met there was a lady named Charlene Moore. If you walk in the church office today, she'll be sitting there again. She's been faithful to God. She's been a part of my life for many years. And as Mark said, I work at the church now, so I have opportunity to work with her every day. And that's been a great thing. And I, just grateful for people like that have been faithful to the call of God in their life for all of my life. And it instilled something in me to be faithful to God, So anyway, within about 6 months or so, a house became available actually on Old Flynn Road, which is the street that the church is on. The church owned this house and it was available, so our family started renting it. So literally from that age, 9 years old, could have possibly been 10 by then, here I am literally living next door to the church. I grew up playing on the property, just being there every day of my life in some way, shape, or form. And there again, I see that as part of the plan of God in my life. Here again, my mom had cried out and God put that in her heart so many years earlier, for me to be raised in the house of God. And I can start, as I look back, seeing that taking shape. Had no clue at the time that God even put that in her heart, let alone that it was actually starting to be fulfilled, But nonetheless, I can look back, hindsight's 20/20 sometimes, or many times, and I can see, actually what was taking place. As time went on, summer would be out in the summer. We would always have prayer at the church every morning during summer. And of course I would go to that. And afterwards, we need somebody to clean up. Okay. I volunteered every single day just because I wanted to be there. Who doesn't want to be in the house of God? I've realized there's people in this day and hour that seem to be the opposite of that. But for me, I wanted to dwell in the courts and the house of God all the days of my life, just like it says in Psalms. Mark and I were talking earlier, and it said, the psalmist said, I want to be a doorkeeper in the house of God. And that's literally what God put in my heart. And and where I've been ever since. As time went on, moved in. We probably I think about the mid 90s now. I was about 15 years old, and my dad left our family. Hard time, to say the least. He had a hard life before, and he basically, the scripture clearly says a dog returns to its vomit. He did that and then some. When you reject God, the devil, he brings other demons with him, and it's that simple. And that truly happened in my dad's life. I said earlier, I have an older brother and sister. They had already moved out of the house at that time, so here we are, grown up as a normal family, seemingly serving God and loving God, but now everything's collapsed around me. Still have my mom, which I'm forever grateful for that stability in my life. Other people like Olaf and Sally that I mentioned, they actually took my mom and I back in at that time. And it's something that I can never repay them. The Bible says, "Owe no man anything but love." That's all I could do for them, was to love them and hope that meant enough, really. Anyway, it was a hard time. It was a trying time, but here again, the church came into play. They took care of me. Our pastor, Sam Whaley, he talks about, every time he gets up, he says, my church family, the family of God, and that word family has become a key to me. So many people in this day and hour don't see it as a family, but that's what we are at the Word of Faith. We're a family. And some people can go to church and it's a thing they do on Sunday or Wednesday or whatever day you have service, but it's different when you're a family and you care about each other. And that's something that it kept me during that time, having that family and that support around me. Also during this time, I found out that my dad, who had just moved away, was not my real dad. Which, there again, it was the timing of God. I needed to know that at that point in my life. I will say, though, he had always treated me as a son. I never knew any different. His family never treated me any different. And up until that moment, I would have never known, So I'm grateful for all those years up until then. But I had some choices to make now. I told you earlier we came from a small town, so knowing who my real dad was or who his family was not an issue. I mean, that was pretty easy to figure out. So the question is, in my mind, do I try to contact them? Do I try to get in touch with them? Well, my real dad had already passed away at that time. Obviously, I'm not getting in touch with him, but what's the right thing to do? And, I settled down in my heart and I prayed, and it was as simple as, I've got a lot going on right now, a lot to handle. God, if you want them to be in my lives, you make a way, and you do that, and I'm simply putting that in your hands. And I basically rested in that and had peace in that for quite a while.
This would be your biological family.
Yes.
You just found out that you have a whole nother family out there.
Correct.
You felt like God said, right now you have all these things going on.
Right.
You're just going to trust God with it.
Absolutely. Don't chase it.
Right.
If it's my will, I'll make a way. It'll be in my timing, because God's timing's perfect. Yeah. It's that simple. Right. Anyway, by this time, I told you I lived on the same street as the church thing. Of course, there's people cutting the grass at church, different things. Well, we grew up hard workers, to say the least. I mean, we enjoyed working. It was fun. It was not something we shied away from. So I was all the time helping at the church just because I wanted to. I mean, I was either down there playing, like I said, or as I got older, I started helping cut the grass, weed eat, just enjoyed being there. As I'm going into high school, right around this time, the man who had been cutting the grass around the church, he got another full-time job. So, I just simply kind of eased into cutting all the grass. I can't even explain how it happened, other than, there's a need and you take care of it. I believe God put me there at that moment, at that time. And of course, the church realized what I was doing and started paying me. I would have done it forever for free, is the way I felt at that moment. But seems to be a lot of lies about the church and money and this, and they take money. Folks, I could spend the entire service telling you the direct opposite of how the church has supported me in every way, shape, and form. And so many times that's financially, you know. Like I say, I could spend the rest of the time talking about that. I won't go down that, other than to say the direct opposite. And I spend every day of my life there, you know.
Right.
Whether I'm involved in the finances or not, I see what goes on. You know, I see the people's lives, and I know what God has done for me through my family. Sure. There. It's that simple. Eventually I graduated from the Christian school. Of course, I was going to the Christian school all this time. Graduated in 1999. Continued working for the church, obviously, because I'm still there. My responsibilities grew at that point, probably. I mean, I'm out of school now. I have more time to devote to that. You know, keeping up with the buildings and just whatever. But I just want to take a moment to say, it. You know, you see in the Old Testament that it talks about how God puts his gifts and his callings on people. When they were building a tabernacle, I mean, God came upon people and moved on their hearts and their lives, and he gifted them and he called them to do certain things for the house of God, for the people of God. That's what God's done to me. And honestly, that's what God has done for every member of the body of Christ. It flows through us in different ways. So I don't see the fact that I'm cutting grass as some natural thing. I see that as a gift that God's given me, taking care of his house, his people. That's a mandate on my life. That's a grace that he's given me to be able to do that. You know, it's my gift. It's my calling. And like I say, I believe everyone in the body of Christ, in the family of God, has that gift and that calling, you know, to walk in. And that's how we all fit together and we all walk together. And here again, you know, coming back to the fact that it's literally becoming a reality now, what God put in my mom's heart. He's been faithful to us. You know, we're going on 25, 30, or I guess 20 years at that point since I had been born, and realizing that I'm being raised in the house of God. It wasn't just, that was something she thought 20 years ago. No, she had no reason to think that. God put that there, and he was going to see it through as we walk with him. His word doesn't return void, you know. So anyway, we're into the early 2000s now. In 2003, I got married to a girl from the church. She is from Brazil. What can I say? I didn't deserve what I got. God blesses us way beyond what we could ever think or ask. I'm so grateful for that. I'm grateful for everything that she's done for me and meant to me, you know, for all of these years. We've been married 16 years now, and we love each other because we love God. And like Mark shared on several programs here, when you love God and someone else loves God, he joins you together, and it's that simple. You can walk together. Here again, the theme of being a part of the family of God.
That's right.
I mean, what can you do? How can someone separate that or divide that? God knows what's best for us. So I'm so grateful for my wife. I love her. We have two boys. Nolan is 13 years old, and Luke is 9 years old. I just said my wife is the biggest blessing in my life, so they're also the biggest blessing in my life, you know. Many, I mean, we spend as much time together as we can. They love being with me. I love being with them. Of course, they're both in the Christian school. I work at church, so I pass them. I see them throughout the day. You know, it's just amazing how God has allowed me to be such a part of their lives, and I'm forever grateful for that. About this time, backing up just a little bit, about the time that we got married, just prior to getting married, my biological father's family contacted me. Okay, I'm from a small town back home, lots
Right.
of talk. Some things you just can't keep a secret. Everybody's in everybody's business. So I had a cousin that contacted and said, could this be true? I had other uncles and aunts that, sure, they knew that I was around somewhere, but, they didn't say anything. Anyway, of course, we talked back and forth. I ended up going to Oklahoma. I met a grandma, an aunt, and an uncle the first time I went. And my wife now, we were engaged to be married at the time, she went with me, and we met them, and it was a good connection, and it was worth waiting on the will of God. It had been about 6 or 7 years since I found out about this situation. Basically put it on a shelf and let God handle it. And I saw the timing of God. God brought it to pass in his timing. We went out there. It was a great time meeting them. My grandma and my aunt ended up coming out a few months later when we got married. Timing of God, unbelievable.
That's right.
Wait on God. It's worth it.
Right.
My wife and I ended up going to college, graduating from Gardner-Webb. My wife also has a degree from Limestone, actually. We're both teachers in a Christian school. We both got our physical education degree at Gardner-Webb. And here again, just to say, did I pay for any of my schooling? No. Mm-hmm. The church paid for my schooling. They saw that I was in need.
Yeah.
And they came to me and said, if this is what God put in your heart, we want to be a part of it. They paid for all of my wife's schooling, because we're part of the family of God. And that's what God put in her heart and told them to do. And would I do that for the church or anybody else in the church? Absolutely.
And does your wife teaches
yes,
at the Christian
yes.
school too?
Gabriella, my wife, teaches in the Christian school. I teach in a Christian school.
Right.
So that's something that we've carried on, since that time. And there again, here we are every day, part of the family of God,
That's right.
Right there on the church grounds. Anyway, about 2008, my dad, Terry, who I'd grown up with, who had left 12 years previously, got to the end of his rope, the bottom of his barrel, and, when he started crying, he eventually realized he needed God again, and he started calling and crying out, and he realized that for him to do the will of God, this is where he needed to be. This is where God had placed him. God places, like I said earlier, every member in the body of Christ. God had placed him here.
And your mom was sharing when she was on the program how he really went into drugs and about to the point where he about died.
Incredibly so.
Was hallucinating and seeing all kinds of things out there, imaginatory, and so he reached the end of himself.
Yeah. He got as low as he could go. Yeah. If you don't believe in demons, you needed to sit down and talk to my dad for just a minute. Mm-hmm. Demons are real, folks. It's that simple. They are real, and he found that out, Didn't have to be that way, but nonetheless it was, and, he found God at the end of it, though. He ended up moving back here. He and my mother got remarried eventually. After being here a few years, found out that he had cancer. Which, it was difficult to walk through. He passed away about 2.5 years ago, but the 8 years that he was here, during this, after he came back, right. The best 8 years, it made up for everything that had happened in the past. God's restoring power is incredible. He brought that around. He allowed me to be a part of my dad's life that I could never, right. believe that would have happened. He was able to be a part of my boy's life, my wife's life. Just really grateful for that. I mean, really, really grateful for that. So then moving along a little bit, in 2012, basically I started not feeling good. I don't know how else to say it.
Right.
I've never been a sickly person, really never went to the doctor much. Just one of those things I didn't
Right.
do. I wasn't sick, and if you were sick, you kind of just pressed through it and you got better at some point.
Sure.
I don't know. It's just the way I was raised. It wasn't going away this time, though. And really, people at the church that I worked with, my mom, my wife, they were really pressing me. You need to go to the doctor. Something's not right. It's gone on too long. So by the end of 2012, I think it was, I started seeing the doctor in December, and a lot of tests, a lot of visits, not really getting anywhere though. By January, I think it would have been January 2013 if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, right in that area, ended up in the hospital, and really spent I was there about a week and a half, spent the majority of the beginning of it not knowing what was wrong with me, just running lots of tests. And after several days, they basically said, well, we're not for sure, but pretty much we can tell you have Hodgkin's lymphoma. Not really what I wanted to hear. There again, turn your eyes on Jesus. I mean, what do you do? But, they said we need to run some more tests. There is something else called sarcoidosis. Possibility you have that, but the people that get that, you're not in the category at all. Okay, so we're obligated to tell you this, but just we're only telling you that because we're obligated to. Anyway, through more testing and biopsies and stuff, the test results came back. I have sarcoidosis, which, not that you want to have it, but definitely the better of the two evils.
Right.
Much better than cancer. There again, I really haven't said this out publicly before. I don't see there is no reason that I should have that. It's an autoimmune disease. There's no reason that I should have it. I feel in my heart I could very well have had cancer, and just through turning my heart to God and His faithfulness, He changed it, and He did a miracle in my life.
How are you doing with that sickness?
Technically, I still have it. I went on quite a bit of medication at the time, and it basically curbed it for quite a while. Ended up getting off of medication. Unfortunately, recently, I'm back on medicine a little bit. Honestly, doing great. It's always there. It's still there.
I never see you slow down.
Okay.
I would have no idea you had any problems at all.
It's not worth slowing down. I mean, I still have it, but here again, God's been faithful to me. I don't know what else to say. So it's still there, but oh well, that's that. You know what I'm saying? God's hands on my life, and
Yes.
I think my time's up probably, but I just want to say I'm so grateful for my family at the church, everything they've done for me, and it pays to be in the will of God and stay in the will of God. If you're faithful to Him, He'll be faithful to you.
And that's great, Logan. Thank you so much for sharing. Logan is the biggest blessing to our church. Everybody loves Logan. All the babies love Logan. All the children love Logan. He's great at PE and comes up with all kinds of great things for them to do. My daughter loves it. She always says, "Dad, Logan's having us do this today," and it's fun. But he's always there. He's always opening the church doors. He's always, toilet running. Logan, I mean, dirty, whatever it is, Logan's there. And we really appreciate Logan, and it's powerful testimony, Logan, the family of God. I love how you shared about how we are one family. It's way beyond just coming to church. We are a family. Yeah. We're the family of God. You and I are family, and all our church is family. And so it is a blessing that God put you in the house of the Lord, like you shared all the days of your life. I love that psalm that David said, "I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of the Lord than be in the tents of the wicked." And that's your heart, I know. So thank you for sharing that. And listeners, thank you today for listening to a testimony about how God is faithful. And all you have to do is just simply say, "God, I want to do what you have for my life, whatever it is." And you will be so happy, like Logan shared. So we're on the program Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 8:30 to 9. I hope that you will continue listening. Thank you very much.